ॐ ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावदीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Clarifications. Narayanji. Number one, Nishiddha karma list cannot be limited. Therefore, what aspect or attribute in a karma qualifies it to be categorized under Nishiddha karma? Please explain. So, Nishiddha karma means prohibited actions. Actions that are prohibited is called Nishiddha karma. Actions that should not be performed under any circumstances is called Nishiddha. It's called Nishiddha karma. And you are right. You cannot give a list of that activities. And even when we say we cannot give a list of that activities, Dharma Shastras, which is the Veda Purva portion, studies about it and has given a formula for Nishiddha Karma also. The first definition of Nishiddha Karma is Paradharma. Paradharma is Nishiddha Karma. Now, which we don't talk about it at all nowadays, because then if you take this, it is so depressing to hear, because most are into Nishiddha Karma only. So the definition of Nishiddha Karma, the first definition of Nishiddha Karma is prohibited actions, as in certain universal prohibited actions. What we call as Samanya Dharma. There are certain universal prohibited actions, like stealing, not uttering a lie, not not going and interfering with the family that's happy. When there is a marital harmony between a couple, I should not go and interfere. I should not go and make my proposal because I like the man or the girl. Now these are all certain Nishiddha karmas that is universal. And those who perform those actions are called atatayinah, which in chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita, you have the list. Remember the word atatayinah. Arjuna tells Krishna, even though they are atatayinah, we will forgive them. No, he said. I think it comes under verse, I think it comes somewhere around 37, 38, chapter 1. I don't remember the exact verse, but atatayinah. In that, if you read the commentary, they will list out the prohibited actions. According to Vasishta Smriti, what is prohibited? According to Manu Smriti, what is prohibited? Isn't it? According to the Testament, what is prohibited? Thou shall not is prohibited actions. Thou shalt is Nitya Naimittika Karma. Thou shalt not is prohibited actions. And they have 6, which is what they also have 7. Sorry, they also have 7. That's where in the poem Turkey and the Ant, of the 7 deadly sins, gluttony the worst, he says. There, if you read, you have the list of what are the 7 Nishiddha Karma. And English, they have names for each and every sin. At least here we don't have names. One of the names called Lucifer. One of the names of the sin is Lucifer, not the movie. There is a movie that came. Has anybody seen that movie, Lucifer? Or at least heard of that? Yeah, isn't it? I mean, I saw the movie and that name, it's not a name of a saint, it's a name of a sinner. It's a name of the sin. Lucifer is the name of the sin. Does anybody know that? Other nobody will know, isn't it? You know, Rajshekhar. All the useless things you know. Yeah, anything useless you do, you know, now he doesn't raise his hand. All the useless things. Yeah. Lucifer is the name of the seven deadly sins. They named each and every sin, got a name. And Lucifer, now I'm not going into the list of all that. Now, therefore, now these are all Samanya Dharma. What we call is universal principles under standard conditions. Universal principles, Samanya Dharma means universal principles, Nishidha Karma. But again, life doesn't give us that opportunity of universal principle being followed, because life being a dynamic fluid situations, sometimes you may even have to utter a lie for the sake of the common good. Now what do you do there? Are you uttering a lie or are you doing a common good there? So if you look at it from the level of the action, it is prohibited, but you look at it from the intention of the action, it is all right. So from here we understand these prohibited sins, Nishiddha karmas, what the Shastras talk about, by default is backed by negative attitude. That we have to accept. By default, it is backed by negative attitude only, because unless a person is very unselfish and living a life of Loka Sangraha as the primary goal of one's life, these these kind of exemptions don't apply. Therefore, the scriptures are very clear that under all circumstances, don't do Nishiddha karma. If at all it has to be done, take guidance. Are you able to follow till now? Take guidance means if somebody asks you to do that, they become the doer, you become the instrument. Therefore, karma will go to whom? Whoever guides you to do that. Supposing if you come and tell me, Narayanji, lie. And if you lie, karma will come to whom? It will come to me only, because you are only acting on an instruction as an instrument, which is very rarely people do all that. For most of the time, people act according to the immediate conveniences. Instant, immediate likes and dislikes, conveniences. Therefore, the list of Nishiddha karma, the Shastra says, must be followed to the T. If you want to violate, if you have to do any of the Nishiddha karma, take guidance. Okay, if there is no guidance, what do we do? To be on the safe side, don't do that. No, desperate situation, I have to do. Make a note that you have done a Nishiddha karma act out of the environmental pressure, and you must do a prayaschitta for it later. Are you able to follow? This is how it works. Because there is no guidance, but I have to do it by myself. Like for example, removing the plug. There is the patient. See, nowadays, once in 2 days, we keep getting a call. Should we remove the plug or not, sir? Now, how do I tell them, no, remove it? I can tell, don't put for me, that I can do. But how can I tell, remove the plug for somebody? Isn't it? Now, the doctors have left the choice to, the doctors have told us that you should decide. Now, how do we even decide on a situation like this? But then you may have to do something. But then you should remember what? I have done this act which should not be done, but because of the environmental pressure, I did this action, and I'm ready for a prayaschitta karma. That's how you will not fall under the effects of Nishiddha karma. Are you able to follow how it works? This is as far as the literal part of the Nishiddha karma list is concerned. And invariably, the list is very clear. You read the Atatainaha portion, and you read the 7 deadly sins in the poem Turkey and the Ant, you will get a list. At least you will get an idea behind that list. Having said this, in Vedanta, in Vedas, Nishiddha karma means Paradharma karma. Paradharma karma is seen as Nishiddha karma. This we will not want to venture into a lot. Yeah. Because if we venture into a lot, next question is what to do now, sir? Because we are all into Paradharma. Now what to do? Now we are at a point where nothing can be done about it unless going through the accepting it and going through the prayaschitta for it. That's all. And that prayaschitta is going to be extremely painful. That prayaschitta is not easy. Prayas means more effort has to be put. Like example of prayaschitta karma, we get from Mandan Mishra's guru. Adi Shankara wanted to have a conversation with Mandan Mishra's guru. They were emphasizing the Veda Purva portions not as a stepping stone but as an end in itself. Shankara wanted to go and tell him that it is a stepping stone, not an end in itself. So by the time Shankara went to that man, he was already into that prayaschitta. He already got into the prayaschitta mode. What is the prayaschitta that he got into? He built a house made of husk and went inside that house and lit it up. He didn't burn himself. Lighting it up from the husk house means what? You will be cooked to death. You will be cooked to death slowly. When Shankara went, he said, now I am in this position, I can't even talk to you. Go to my student Mandan Mishra. If you can talk to him and if you can establish your Siddhanta, it is right. The whole world will accept it. That's how Shankara goes and meet Mandan Mishra. Now the question is not that. The question is the conviction in the prayaschitta. In the modern days, this looks very superstitious, very silly. Nobody will even want to hear that. Because we will say, no, sir, why should we be so gross and cruel like that? Why can't we be more sensitive? Why can't we be more compassionate? Are you able to follow? Prayaschitta is the compassion. When you put a person to jail, are you punishing the person or you are being compassionate to him? When a person is sent to prison, is it punishment or compassion? It is compassion. It's not punishment. It is compassion only. Why? Because that person has made a mistake, but the system wants to give that person a chance to reflect, follow a discipline, reform, and get out. Correct? Now, now a system can put you into prison or you can do it by yourself. When you do it by yourself, it's called prayaschitta. Are you able to follow? Paradharma is Nishiddha karma. Formula this is. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmo bhayavaha. Look at that statement. If you are a failure in paradharma, it is better. If you are successful, if you are your failure in swadharma, it is better to be a failure in swadharma than to be successful in paradharma. Haven't we studied that in Bhagavad Gita? Haven't we studied that in Bhagavad Gita? Better to be a failure in Swadharma than being successful in Paradharma. Why? Because Paradharma is Nishiddha karma. What is Paradharma means? Acting, choosing a field of activity different to your nature and trying to fulfill your desires through that field of activity is adharma. Again, what is paradharma? Choosing a field of activity which is alien to your nature, earn a living through that to fulfill your arthakama pursuit. That is called paradharma. That paradharma is a nishiddha karma. What happens in nishiddha karma? Everybody will end up doing everything so that there is anarchy, chaos in the society. Everybody does everything. Not everybody can't do everything, isn't it? It's a simple law of life. Everybody can't do everything. It's not about inequality here. If it is about equality, the first thing that should be banned in all organizations is appraisals and rewards based on appraisals. Isn't it? Why? Because we are saying if you perform more efficiently, you will be rewarded more. Equality will come and say this person didn't have opportunity only. Therefore, how can you give that to that person who had opportunity? This person didn't have opportunity. Therefore, the fellow who had opportunity should not be given anything. The person who didn't have opportunity must be given everything. Then the equality can be restored. Society become anarchic. Are you able to follow? Society will become anarchic. It will become entire chaotic. It will become absolutely chaotic. Why? Because if it is not your nature, you cannot have Shraddha in the field of activity. You cannot be consistent in that field of activity. You can never have a passion towards that activity. If you don't have passion, what was I saying? Huh? Unmute somebody. What was I saying?
You don't have passion.
Ah, correct. Paradharma means you will not have passion. You will not be consistent. You cannot be joyous about what you are doing. Paradharma means the doing will not give joy, the result alone will give you joy. Therefore, you will do all shortcuts to get the result. Are you able to follow what is Paradharma? This is called, so what is Nishiddha Karma? Paradharma is Nishiddha Karma. Why Paradharma is Nishiddha Karma? Because Paradharma, you are not true to yourself. You are not true to your nature. What is not being true to your nature means you will have a field of activity and that field of activity has only this much potential to reward you and you should discipline your likes and dislikes inside of that. Are you able to follow? Again, I repeat. Your nature will direct you to a field of activity. Carefully follow the sequence. Your nature will naturally direct you to a field of activity. Number two, that field, every field of activity has a potential to reward you. If you have the nature of a teacher, you can never get rewarded as a person, as a business person. The business person material reward will be different. The teacher's material rewards will be different. The field of activity itself will decide that. Are you okay till now? Because of comparison and moving out of Nishiddha Karma, everybody wanted to have everything, which is impossible. Because if everybody can have everything, what will happen? Everybody will want to be the consumer, enjoyer. Nobody will want to be the producer. Paradharma it becomes. Are you able to follow? Number two, they will want the result in comparison with somebody else. Nishiddha karma it is. Therefore, what it is Nishiddha karma. Now, the biggest problem of today in talking about Nishiddha karma, that's why nobody will have the courage to talk about it. Why? Because very difficult to say paradharma is Nishiddha karma. In fact, all those who have been hearing Vedanta for 30, 40 years also would not have connected Nishiddha karma and paradharma are one and the same. And even though we have been hearing it any number of times, Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmo Bhayavaha. It is dangerous, it is deadly, it is detrimental. Better to be a failure in Swadharma than being a successful in Paradharma. Therefore, what is Nishiddha karma technically speaking? Proof of it is what? What should I do, sir? The moment a person asks, what should I do? You understand that person has moved away. Because a person following Swadharma will never have this dilemma. A person who's following the Swadharma will never have that dilemma. So what is Nishiddha karma? Paradharma karma is Nishiddha karma. Why does a person get into Paradharma karma? The pressure of the likes and dislikes is so much that I cannot wait to fulfill that. I'm in a rush to fulfill my likes and dislikes. In a rush to fulfill my likes and dislikes, I need wealth. Which field will give me wealth maximum? I will go to that. That is why today the question that we ask is, what is if a boy or girl comes and says, I want to study a course, the question that is asked is what? What is the scope? Campus interview. Who will come for campus interview? What will be the scope? It means it is very clear. What is very clear? The purpose of education is not whether you are interested in it or not, whether it is your swadharma or not and all. It's not the discussion. What is the discussion? It's a very straightforward understand. Are you able to follow? Therefore, what is Nishiddha karma? Paradharma is a Nishiddha karma. Paradharma means doing an action which is apart from your swabhava. We have seen that swabhava plus dharma equals paradharma. Now swabhava plus swakarma. Swakarma na andanda bhavathukku in the action. Sorry, I'm going into my language. Swabhava karma means that field of that guna bhava will naturally lead you to this activity. This bhava will lead you to this activity. Then the dharma comes in. What is dharma means? This is my nature. This is my swabhava. For this swabhava, this is the field of activity that I should do. For this field of activity that I should be in, this is the reward that I will get from this field of activity. And my likes and dislikes should be within the boundary of that field of activity. This is the attitude. Anything is violated is paradharma. Are you able to follow? Any of this that we violate becomes Nishiddha karma. Today, Nishiddha karma, today in a very gross way, Nishiddha karma means prohibited actions as a very superficial example we give. What is a super example? Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not, commandments, no? The commandments. In your swabhava karma, you have to follow yama niyama. Then it is swadharma. In your swabhava karma, you follow the disciplines of yama niyama. What is that yama niyama? We have studied in some other sessions. I'm not going into the details of it. And also we have studied it in the introductions to the Atma Bodha, etc. Yama and niyama. So, violating yama and niyama in your swabhava karma is Nishiddha karma. It's a very, it's not as simple as you must not do this, you must not do this, you should do this. It's not as simple as that. Are you able to follow? Though killing, you will not incur sin, Arjuna, because you are a Kshatriya. Even though ahimsa is a universal dharma, for a Kshatriya, killing will not incur sin. It means he is murder, he is killing, is killing Nishidha karma or not? Ah, to that person, it is not Nishidha karma. Because for that nature, the law permits that person to do that. Because it is permitted by the law. Yeah. It is symbolic, no. You come to, yeah, not you come to, you are from this place only. Here, we see police fellow standing with a lathi, no, wooden stick. What can you do with the wooden stick? Nothing can be done with the wooden stick. But the wooden stick is a symbol of what? The wooden stick is symbol. What is the symbol of the wooden stick that the policeman carries? What is that symbol? You will be hit. If you violate the law, you will be hit. It's a symbol. Now, only if he hits, he will not be punished. If I take a stick and hit somebody on the road, what will happen? How much ever I may say that person is doing the wrong thing, I cannot do that. Movie la தான் அதெல்லாம் நடக்கும் இல்லையா? Only in a movie only the fellow can do. He can just come out, the hero can just come out, take the gun and shoot all the bad fellows. And we can also clap, but we come back thinking, knowing fully well that it's a fantasy. It cannot happen in reality. Are you able to follow that? Are you able to follow the example? So, Nishiddha, it is prohibited for the rest of the society to take a stick and hit. It is not prohibited for that person to hit. If I tell a person, hang the person to death, it is prohibited. If the judge says that, is it prohibited? And the judge need not feel guilty at all about doing it. Why? Because it is permitted by the law. Therefore, Nishiddha karma, so all these karmas, Nitya, Naimittika, Kamya, Nitya karma, Naimittika karma, Kamya karma, Prayasita karma, Nishiddha karma. All these actions must be guided by the law. Are you okay? That law must be dharma. That's all I'm saying. That law must be guided by dharma. And dharma cannot be an opinion of anybody. Dharma can't be collective opinion. Dharma must be based on some irrefutable principles. Therefore, in tradition, we add a adjective to dharma, calling it as Sanatana dharma. The word Sanatana means eternal. Puratana, old. Nowadays, the word Sanatana is spoken about as Puratana. There are three Sanskrit words. Sanatana, Puratana, Nutana. Nutana na pudusu. New. When the railway lines were made and the engine and the coaches were made and started running on rails, it is Nutana. Today it is Puratana, isn't it? Why? Because we had when we grew up, we always had fantasy for trains. No, today people have fantasy for cars, isn't it? The kids today, we have a fantasy for cars. We in 70s and 80s, we had fantasies about trains. Have you ever noticed that you can never get tired of looking at a goods train? It will go on and on and on. It will go like an elephant. You can never get tired of looking at an elephant. Yeah, it's so huge, isn't it? Are you able to follow? in the physics class, when we were reading, studying about the motions and everything, I still remember the physics teacher. Yeah, some of them you can't know. Said how they designed the wheel to take the curve. Because if we have that, if we have a straight line and the wheel goes, any small turn, even a millimeter turn, what will happen to the wheel? Basic mathematics, what will happen to the wheel? It will just derail itself. So it has to bend and curve at that speed and keep running at that speed. It's a wonderful physics. It's a wonderful mathematics, isn't it? It's a wonder. Now, today it is. At that time, what was Nutana is Puratana today. Because today, is that a big deal, sir? Is that a big deal? For the kids that is born in the last 5 years, 5G network is common sense. Anything below 5G is anything below 5G network is dark ages. Correct? Anything below 5G is dark ages. Now, is it Puratana or Nutana? Therefore, that which was Puratana, that which is Nutana at one point becomes Puratana at another time. Sanatana is distinct and different from these two. Means what? It's dharma. It's based on some eternal law. In plural, we call it as the laws. That law has defined actions into 5 categories, and one of the categories, Nishiddha Karma, prohibited actions, because the prohibited actions, a person do a prohibited actions only because of 2 factors. All prohibited actions happens only because of 2 factors. Victim of karma, victim of selfishness. A person of victim of a desire and victim of selfishness. Therefore, we say Kamayesha, Krodayesha, Rajoguna Samudbhavaha. He said it in chapter 4. Chapter 3. Papmanam Hridayityenam, he said. Because the greatest enemy of dharma is not the greatest, the only greatest of enemy that drives you into paradharma. Adharma is what? Is selfishness, victim of karma. Victim of karma, ragadvesha. So victim of ragadvesha and victim of selfishness. Selfishness na swartham nartham. What is the Sanskrit word for selfishness? Swartham. So swapakaram is called selfishness. Paropakaram. Paropakarartham idam shariram, people write, no. This body is meant for service. This body is meant to serve others. Paropakarartham idam shariram. What is opposite of what is selfishness? So upakar. All the time worried about what? All the time worried about my feelings, my emotions, my likes and dislikes, my comforts, my, everything relates only to, and that makes you so impatient that you will drive into actions. And that impatience makes you to do Nishiddha Karma activities. Are you able to follow the sequence? Victim, which is what he calls as, in the second chapter, he calls it as Vega. It's the Vega, Arjuna. The Vega, the pressure. You just can't hold yourself and go to sleep. You just can't hold yourself and go. You can't do that. I'm not able to sleep. I'm not able to sleep. After popping 3 sleeping pills, also the person is not able to sleep. Or unless I have pills, I cannot sleep. So what is all this due to? What is all this due to? All this is due to one thing. What? The pressure of the selfishness, the pressure of having to fulfill raga dvesha. Are you okay till now? The third factor that makes a person go into paradharma activities is comparison. That's why we say don't compare, don't compare, don't. It's your nature. Why are you comparing? It's your nature. Why are you comparing? Nothing in nature compares, but everything does what it ought to do. Why do you compare? Comparison is the third reason for a person to do paradharma. What does comparison means? That's why I said a person working in one field of activity will look at the result that the person is getting in another field of activity and quickly wants that. A sports person will hit a peak in mid 20s and retire at mid 30s. Rest of the 70 years he has to live on that only, isn't it? So now a lawyer or a doctor looking at that says, I should also get it at 35. What will happen? What will happen? That's what is happening today. Comparison. Everybody compares. And when you compare, obviously, who you will compare with? You can never compare yourself with a dharmic person, because comparison is always with another indulgent person only you can compare. Because indulgent person seems to be a happy person, a disciplined person seems to be very, very uninteresting, very rough, isn't it? A disciplined person is very uninteresting. Indulgent person is very attractive. If discipline can attract you, you will be disciplined. The fact that you are not disciplined means what are you getting attracted to? You will say, everybody around me should be disciplined, sir, but I will be indisciplined. Are you able to follow? Comparison. What is the comparison due to? Comparison is, I see the benefit in another field of activity and I want that. The material reward. The material reward that I see there, I want it. This comparison makes me to do This comparison makes me to perform actions which is distinct and different from my nature. And the consequences of Nishiddha karma is very clear. The palam, the gati, the palam, the fruit. What is the fruit of Nishiddha karma? Discontentment. No satisfaction at all is Nishiddha karma. The result of Nishiddha karma. Because Swadharma, you are so satisfied doing what you are doing. Understand the difference? In Swadharma, the very doing itself is so satisfying that there is no problem at all in you. Nishiddha karma, there will be a problem. What is the problem? The problem of discontentment. And the problem of discontentment because you are comparing yourself with another field of activity. I always used to give this example. A IIM Ahmedabad professor, without taking loans in his career, can buy a Sia sedan. That's all. Can only buy a Sia sedan. That's all he can afford. That's all he can do. That field of activity can only give that. Full stop. Is it wrong? Is it inferior? No, it's not wrong. It's not inferior. His student who had studied entrepreneurship business from that man will go out, have 1,000 crores, will have 4 BMWs and a private jet. Oh, this is the inequality of life, sir. All undeserving people are having everything. Me, what am I having? Is it correct? It's an unequal comparison which results in the professor ending up doing Nishiddha karma. What is the Nishiddha karma he will do? At least take a loan and buy one BMW first. Why do that? Why do that? Are you able to follow? A business person having made money loses it at some point of time. A business person will make money and he will lose it also. Remember that. A person who made it has to lose a portion of it. It's the law. Nobody can just have and have and have and have and have. It's not possible. It's against the law. Summer must, the day must turn into night. The one who has earned must lose. So a business person will never get demotivated about the loss he made. Next morning, he will be so cheerfully starting the action again. Have you seen anybody doing it like that? You can't. Nobody can. Very difficult. And yet, the culture here was to follow the Swadharma. And they called it as Nishiddha Karma so that nobody will venture into it. Prohibited actions it is. Prohibited action it is. Somebody has to earn money. Somebody must teach how to earn money. Somebody must know how to protect that money. Somebody must know how to invest it so that it multiplies. Now, one person can't do everything. Rewards also differ. Are you able to follow? Last example. Has anybody won the Nobel Prize at 25 and 30? Has anybody won the Nobel Prize at 25? What is the average age of Nobel Prize? Almost, almost posthumously தான் இல்லையா? Almost death bedல தான் கொடுக்குறாங்க இல்லையா? Why? Because to win a Nobel Prize in physics and chemistry, you must have studied that much and spent that much time. You can't just open your eyes, get a Nobel Prize and come. Why? And that person will never ever get depressed. Because in 70 years of research, how many losses that person would have gone through? Are you able to follow? Therefore, it never ever happens where the reward that one field of activity gives will be by another field of activity. Nishiddha karma means what here? Paradharma karma. Paradharma karma is because of what? The attitude of falling a victim to likes and dislikes, immediate pressure of selfishness, comparison. The person who has a clarity on this is the right attitude that Vedanta wants to bring in. Now, Vedanta doesn't want to bring in Nishiddha karma as in prohibited list of activities. Vedanta wants to bring in Nishiddha karma as in Paradharma karma. That's why I gave both. Vedanta's description of Nishiddha karma will be from the Paradharma karma angle, not from the list of activities. And they kept it so rigid in the past that people not even thought of venturing it, moving away from their Paradharma. And Arjuna wanted to move from Paradharma. Krishna has to stop it because it is a Nishiddha karma. You will stop a person from doing a good action or bad action. Will you convince a person to do a good action or will you convince a person to do bad action? To do a good action. How much Krishna persuaded Arjuna to do the good action of fighting? Why? Because that is Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmo Bhayavaha. Arjuna, haven't you studied this? How can you even think of moving away from your Swadharma? Because of selfishness, you want to move away from your Swadharma. What is the selfishness? Killing others is all right. Others getting murdered and slaughtered and dying is all right. My people, Swajanam Krishna. Others dying, life is natural. But my father and mother dying, correct? Oh, no. That is Swajanam. No. That is Nishiddha karma. Are you able to follow? Swajanam karma, Swajanam Krishna. How can I do that Swajanam thing? So, if you take the very concept of Bhagavad Gita itself, you get a clarity on what is Nishiddha karma. Because Arjuna was doing Nishiddha karma, Krishna has to persuade him not to do that. And he has to educate him, persuade him. What all teachings he did to make him come back to what? It means from that you derive the conclusion. What is the conclusion? Paradharma is Nishiddha karma. Nishiddha karma means action which is against dharma. Nishiddha karma means actions which is against dharma. And what is the dharma? You have a swabhava, and that swabhava will have a swakarma. With that swabhava, that swakarma is the field of activity. Your nature will necessitate a field of activity perform actions in that field of activity alone, irrespective of the success or the failure. Do that activity alone for what? Level number 1, Arthakama. Level number 2, Chitta-Shuddhi. Level number 1, Arthakama. Arthakama means you want some wealth, you want to fulfill your desires, you also want to live a good life, you also want to go on a holiday sometimes, you also want to have a few things, you also want to do everything, do all that. Children, toys, play with toys for a while. Play with toys for a while. But you get so scared when the child is not leaving the toys. Isn't it? Don't you get worried if the child doesn't leave the toy? Today, the problem is we take the toys and we don't leave the toys. We have taken the toys, but we don't leave those toys at all. What is the toys? Do your swabhava karma guided by dharma for the sake of chitta shuddhi. That's how it is connected. Narayanji, very bad mood today I am in, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Therefore, the whole this is the entire sequence. It flows like that. Then it's very clear. Then you know the idea of Nishiddha Karma clearly. Otherwise, we go by prohibited actions as in the list of gross actions. It's not the list of gross actions. But the very gross action itself is an indicator of your attitude. No doubt about it also. The gross action is an indicator of your attitude. Nobody will say, I'm stealing for Chitta Shuddhi. Does it make any sense? I am murdering for Chitta Shuddhi. I am a rapist for Chitta Shuddhi. Is it possible? Just doesn't go. It just doesn't go at all like that. Are you able to follow Nishiddha Karma? Therefore, the clarity on Nishiddha Karma in the eyes of Vedanta is not those list of external activities. It is Nishiddha Karma equals Paradharma Karma. Remember that always. Nishiddha Karma equals Paradharma. Example, Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted to move away from Swadharma Karma to Paradharma Karma, and Krishna brought him back to Paradharma Karma. So Krishna brought him back to Swadharma Karma, and what happened? 46 lakhs and odd human beings with other horses and elephants and I don't know what all died in that. Though killing, you will not incur sin, Arjuna. I tell you. How many nights I have spent time on that, I know. How can he even make a statement like that? Though killing, you will not incur sin. Though killing, how can you not incur sin? It's so obvious that you should not kill because I don't like to get killed. If I don't like to get killed, how can I kill? Because double standards. And here is this man saying, and 5,000 years people have read this literature, interpreted it rightly, and we are still following it. I'm like, I tell you, some portions of the Gita was, at least I got very confused. When I say confused means I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept it. And then, Nishiddha Karma means Paradharma, the entire jigsaw puzzle got solved. You follow? I'm telling you today what I did 35 years back. It's like, I used to like, how can it be, though killing, in chapter 2, he says, though killing, you will not incur sin. How can a statement like that be made? You kill for a common cause is also understandable. But still there is a sin there. He's saying you will not incur papa. Nishidha karma means naraka, papa. See, Nishidha karma means papa. Correct? Sin. He is saying, though killing, you will not incur sin. What does that mean? How can a person command a person like that? What kind of a guidance is that? For Arjuna, the Kshatriya, the Swabhava karma drives him to battlefield. Therefore, fighting is his dharma. In fighting, he can lose his eye, he can lose his hand, he can lose his leg, or he can get killed. Better to get killed than losing the hands and legs and come out of the battlefield, isn't it? He can do that to somebody, somebody can do that to him also. It means a person going into that field with that thing is not sinful. Are you able to follow? That's why we always say fight directly. Fight directly. Because when you see the pain right in front of your eyes, and if you can just continue to do that, then it's your swabhava. You see the pain in front, you will want to run away from that. You want to stop it. How can you do that? Are you able to follow the difference? Are you able to follow the difference? So, to conclude, the theorem, the principle, the formula for Nishiddha karma is Paradharma karma. But sir, இதுல ஒன்னும் ஸ்கோப்பே இல்லையே. There's no big scope at all in that. There's no big scope at all in this. What do you mean by scope? வேலை கிடைக்காது, salary கிடைக்காது. You can't make money, that's all. At the end of it, you can't make money. Those who have made enough money are the ones who give this philosophy, sir. Money doesn't mean anything. How many times I have heard this? Say those who have made money and living flushed with money are the ones who come and say money has no value. What can you tell that person? You know that you can never talk to a person who is revealing a partial fact. You can never talk and have a conversation with those who gives partial facts. Because in partial facts, yes and no can be very clear. This is tamasic intellect. In partial fact, you can say yes or no. If you take all factors into consideration, it is very difficult to conclude anything. You can always say, you have to always say what? It's okay. It can be done. We can explore it. We can explore it. Are you able to follow? There are two sides to an action. What are the two sides to an action? One is the doer, another is the doing. One is the doer, another is the doing. There are two sides to an action. Vedanta emphasizes on the doer. Ethics and moral social system will worry about the doing. Are you able to follow? They worry about the doing. They are not worried about the doer. Vedanta is worried about the doer. Why? Why? Why you can't do that? Because in order to change the doer means you have to change yourself. Inner change is required. To change the deed, your inner personality need not change. Your inner personality can just remain the same selfish, self-centered, and your doing can look very, very great. I can, by doing, I can make myself look great, but the doer inside is the problem. And karma is never comes from the doing. The karma comes for the doer. That's why we talk about karta and bhokta. Isn't it? That's why we talk about the karta and the bhokta. And everybody's worried about the doing. Doing means what? What I have to do today. I have to talk from 7 to 8. I have to from 7 to 8. I have to talk. Is the doing. There is the doer behind the doing. I can train myself to do the doing effectively, and the doer in me can be very gross. Or I can change the doer in me, and that changed doer can do an effective doing. Vedanta's approach is the second. But the problem is what? We always take partial facts, because in a partial fact, it's very easy to, in a partial fact, it is very easy to say yes or no. When you take all factors into consideration, you can never, there will be what in modern day they call as analysis paralysis. You are analyzing, you just don't know what to do now. Analysis paralysis, they call. Now, that is not it. That is not it. Are you able to follow what I'm saying? Therefore, the very problem of thinking itself is not about the doing, the doer. Are you okay? A simple example. All human court can punish you after your doing. If you have not done it, court cannot punish you. I am thinking of stealing from your house, Narayanji. I'm not thinking, I'm just saying. And anyway, you don't have anything worthful in your house to steal also. That's another story. Yeah. Illa laakarle vechtinga. Now what is there to steal? Isn't it? So I am thinking of stealing from your house. You can't go and give a police complaint. Police will ask you what? Tiriditara. Has the deed happened? No. He's contemplating. He's thinking. Next month it will happen. So preempt it. Preempt it. After doing only you can preempt. One way of thinking. Vedanta comes from another angle. What is another angle that Vedanta comes from? Vedanta comes from this angle of saying things as to what? Remember, Nishiddha karma or any analysis, any thinking should not be done on partial facts. What is partial fact? Partial fact means the pairs of opposite looks inimical to each other. That is partial fact. That is wrong thinking. The pairs of opposites look inimical to each other. Is loss appears inimical to profit. Correct? Can you accept profit and loss equal? Death appears inimical to life. Failure looks inimical to success. Thinking is being aware of the opposites, correct? Dvandvas. Intellect means being aware of the opposites. Now, it's not just being aware of the opposites. If you are aware of the opposites and you are accepting it, you are thinking rightly. The fact that you are aware of the opposite, it comes to a conclusion. What is the conclusion? one is inimical to other. I love you. It means obviously I don't love the other. Correct? If I say I love you and I love you and I love you, does it make any sense? You will say, no, no, what kind of thing? Are you able to follow? Thinking is always, thinking must have this clarity. What is clarity in thinking? Being aware of the opposites as not inimical to each other, as complementary to each other, and you necessarily have to go through both. Hmm? Ego will not accept it. Selfishness will not accept it. In any context, so ultimately what it boils down to, the understanding of Nishiddha Karma, it boils down to one thing. What? It has to be clearly understood based on established principles, which is Sanatana. It has to be based on established principles, which is Sanatana. What is Sanatana? Labha, labho, jaya, jaya. Is, is, is Sanatana. Eternal it is. Sanatana it is. Matrar Sparshasta Kaunteya, Sitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha is eternal. It is Sanatana it is. One should not be seen as inimical to. The moment you see one as inimical to another, you will want to hold on to one and reject the other. That holding on to one and rejecting the other is what I call as partial fact. In thinking, we should not do that. Are you able to follow? What is Nishiddha Karma? Now, this field of activity can give only this much. And the very satisfaction comes from doing and not the rewards out of it. This is dharma. But then, no, sir. If I just like to laze around, I'm following my swabhava, no. I don't feel like doing anything at all. You can never not do anything. Either you are doing a useless action or doing a useful action. So lazing around is a useless action that is prohibited. Full stop. Why? Your because your swabhava is driving you into an activity. Your stubborn mind is refusing to act. Are you able to follow? Your swabhava will drive you into an action. The stubborn mind, because it is not getting what it wants, will refuse to do an activity. What is it? What do you call it? Nishiddha karma. Correct? So inaction becomes Nishiddha karma. Inaction is Nishiddha karma. Paradharma karma is Nishiddha karma. So two definitions of Nishiddha karma. What are the two definitions of Nishiddha karma? Paradharma is one Nishiddha karma. Inaction is another Nishiddha karma. Nahi kaschid kshanamapi jatu dishthatya akarma krit sharira yatra pichate Arjuna. You follow? You can never be inactive even for a split. Second, for action is inevitable. It means what? Either you are doing a bunch of useful actions or you are doing a bunch of useless actions. Useless action is Nishiddha karma by default. Isn't it? What does useless action means? An action by which I'm a consumer and not a contributor. Correct? An action where I'm a consumer but refusing to be a contributor. This attitude is called selfishness. What does selfishness means? I am happy to be a consumer. The moment I want to be the moment I should be a contributor, I start calculating. When I'm consuming, I should calculate. When I'm contributing, idanna mama, give it. Idanna mama, give it. What is the problem? Idanna mama, just give. Just give. For how much ever you give, that much you get in return. Because life showers you with that abundance. Where is the problem? So what is Nishiddha Karma now? Inaction is Nishiddha Karma. Paradharma Karma is Nishiddha Karma. Not a list of moral, ethical principles. Nishiddha Karma is not a set of moral, ethical principles. Even though we give those list of moral, even though we give a list of actions like that, because anybody who's doing those six will be performing it out of utter selfishness, tamasic nature. You follow? Therefore, Nishiddha Karma. Whatever questions are there, we'll take up later next week. But for today, in Vedanta, Nishiddha Karma is Paradharma and inaction. And the inaction is Sanskrit name Akarma. Hi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtyata akarma krita. Akarma. There is akarma, there is vikarma. இல்லையா நம்ம விகர்மா பண்ணணும், அகர்மா பண்ணக்கூடாது. அகர்மா இன் தமிழ் அதான் அக்கிரமான்னு அர்த்தம். மாத்தி பண்றது இல்லையா, மாத்தி மாத்தி பண்றது இல்லையா. The young person want to behave like an old age, the old man wants to behave like one. Yeah. Yeah. The children will want to behave like an adult, the adult will want to behave like an child. எல்லாம் கிரமாவே இல்ல அங்க. Yeah. Are you able to follow? Nishiddha karma it becomes. So in Vedanta, Nishiddha karma is only two. What are the two? Akarma, kama, paradharma. Kaman போட்டுக்காதீங்கோ. Paradharma equals Nishiddha karma equals akarma plus paradharma. அப்படி போட்டுங்கன்னா you will never ever want to do Nishiddha karma. சரியா? With this we conclude for today.